Hello, hockey friends and families around the world, and welcome to another episode of Our Kids Play Hockey. I'm Lee Elias, and I'm joined by Christie Burns and Mike Benelli. And our guest today is the embodiment of perseverance in hockey. Matt Moulson was a 9th-round NHL draft pick, and just to keep that in context, they don't even do 9 rounds anymore. All right, and he defied the odds to play 11 seasons in the league, notch over 350 points, and wear letters on his chest along the way. But more than that, Matt is a proud husband, father, and after hanging up the skates professionally, he turned his focus to giving back to the game that gave him so much. Whether it's coaching youth hockey, writing a children's book, or simply showing up at the rink for his own kids, he's a passionate ambassador for the next generation of players. Today, we'll explore Matt's winding road to the NHL, the lessons he learned along the way, and most importantly, his advice for young players and parents trying to navigate the hockey world today, which is why this show literally exists. Matt, welcome to Our Kids Play Hockey.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be on with you guys.
No, it's a pleasure to have you too, man. And it's really great because, you know, you're someone whose career I watched. I know all of us did. We were able to follow along, and to get to dive into your story is really exciting. So let's kind of start at the beginning of the NHL career. Being a 9th-round pick is no guarantee to be in the NHL. All right. Being a 7th-round pick is no guarantee. So I want to know that while you're picked, and that's a tremendous honor, again, not a lot of people get drafted to begin with, what kept you going when those odds didn't look exactly promising? Because you did have a full career. You were a leader in the league, right? How did you compartmentalize that mentally? What did you do physically after being drafted in the 9th round to get all the way to where you got?
It's a good question. I think the easy answer is just a lot of work. I think when I was probably 25, I was 3 years into my professional career, and had 3 pretty good years in Manchester in the AHL and played some games with LA. And I saw it as kind of a fork in the road. This is kind of going to be my make or break year. And, it's very, you look back on your career and life, obviously, and think about some of the very fortunate, lucky things you had. That year, coming off 3 years in the minors, I met my now wife, who was a huge support system for me and my good luck charm. And then started training with Ben Prentice, who kind of reshaped my nutrition and workout, and surrounded by some great players here. Marty St. Louis was a guy that I looked up to and looked for advice, and met him at the exact same time in Greenwich, Connecticut. So it was all these things kind of happened at once, and in years of just putting in hard work and maybe just tweaking it a little bit, eventually paid off when I finally got to the Islanders.
And what was that like for you? You made it.
Yeah, I never played a full season in the NHL before, and that first year, I had a really good training camp. Also, pretty fortunate, unfortunate for some guys. I remember Dougie Waite went out with a groin injury in training camp. Sean Bergenheim went with a groin injury, so there was really no left wingers, and I knew John Tavares since he was, probably 9 or 10 years old, so I knew him really well. And we just seemed to click and had a great training camp and made the team out of camp and continued to get some goals on that line with him and Kyle Oposo. And it was kind of like, all right, I think you finally made it, and went on to have a great year and kind of build off that. But that was a huge confidence builder for me that year.
Yeah, what's interesting to me, Matt, when I want to talk about it, and we all remember that line if you grew up around that time period. I mean, it's just like the Islanders had kind of arrived again. But what I want to talk to you about here is this, right? When you look at the journey of hockey, right? And we always say on this show, there is no path. There's no direct path. So whether you're drafted in the 9th round or you didn't make the team you want to make, I love how in your answer, it was just positive. Like, well, I had to put in more work. I had to find the right nutrition. I had to find the right people. It sounds like to me, and I do want you to talk to the parents and the kids listening specifically here, that it's not that you lacked resources. It's you were resourceful, right? And I think that that's something that a lot of hockey families need to kind of consider, because I think sometimes it's, well, I'll find another team, or I need to find another coach, or they're looking for other resources, where the truth is you just need to be a little more resourceful and put the time in and find the right nutrition and find the right trainer and work harder. Can you talk a little bit to hockey families about how that mentality maybe spawned in you? Did you have that from a young age? And how did that help you throughout your entire career, from the first day on the ice all the way through retirement?
Yeah, I think the first point I'll make to your comment, I think it's, today's day and age, we expect to have everything easy. We want this great path for our children where there's no adversity, and they're great from 5 years old to 20 years old and playing the NHL. But the truth is there's always adversity. If there isn't, usually those are the guys that are not making it because they haven't faced adversity. And, you see these guys in the NHL, all this is adversity every day. So I think when I was young, it was my dad doing all the research. He loved hockey. He wasn't really much of a hockey player as much as he likes to think, but he kind of did all the research for me. And I think, it was looking at at the time, both of us looking at me with like brutal honesty. We knew my weaknesses, knew things I had to work on, and they weren't going to be fixed overnight. It was just day after day working on them and improving flaws I had in my game. I think it's a very tedious work where you don't really see any results. I think that's the thing. I think you see a lot of people now say, I've seen a lot of people on the Instagram and whatever saying you have to fall in love with the process, and I think that's the whole thing. If you're thinking about the end goal, it's just so far away that it's tough to reach. But if you're working on the process every day, and that comes like finding the right training, finding the right skates, what have you, you fall in love with working hard, and it's never really you against anyone else or trying to make it over someone else. It's always, my son actually started his first day at Ben Prentice today, and I told him working out's not about beating other people in terms of lifting more weight than them. It's the ultimate mental challenge where it's just you versus you. It's how far can you push your body? How much are you willing to push your body? And I think for me, luckily, I don't know if I was born with it or what, but I always really enjoyed pushing myself to absolute failure. So, all these things my dad researched in the past, the skating and the working out, I was always willing to do it because I always wanted to push myself till complete failure.
Right. And I think part of it is you were born with it, but you also worked really hard at your skills, and part of your development included Cornell University. So you find that we're big Red fans here in Syracuse, New York.
Okay,
Cornell's
I
just
didn't
down
know
through
that.
it. So
Right.
yeah. And what a run they just had, right? That must have really helped you get more disciplined, and that NCAA experience too must have set you up nicely for your career later on.
Well, 100%. I think growing up, schooling was always very important to our family, and it's important to me as well. I always wanted to do well in school. I always wanted to get good grades. I knew I obviously always wanted to play in the NHL, but at 15, 16, my goal was to try to go to university, get a scholarship. Obviously, they don't hand those out in the Ivy League, but I think that was my goal, is to play hockey in college, and that was my I guess goal before the NHL. Something I always held important. I wanted to graduate. I wanted to make sure I had that, because you know that the NHL is not exactly
Right.
a guarantee. So to be able to, I think I kind of always had that in my back pocket to lean on if I had to, was my degree, and obviously going to a great school. And I think more than teaching me discipline, I think just meeting some of the unbelievable people at Cornell was good life lessons that I could transfer to sports and school. But there were some pretty remarkable people that I got to become friends with and meet when I was there, and they're a huge part of my life.
If you went to college today, you might have got paid the way things are going
That's
this
right.
direction. A different world. Go
They
ahead,
missed
Mike.
out on
Yeah, no, I was going to
I
say,
was-
Matt. I mean, obviously, you've experienced some great opportunities along the way because of your skill level and your work ethic. But can you just talk a little bit about your roles as a leader, a recognized leader? I mean, you've been worn letters in the NHL and the AHL. I'm sure in youth hockey, you're probably looked up to as a leader on your team. Can you talk a little bit about how your leadership qualities have evolved and really, maybe even you mentioned Marty St. Louis, who I think a lot of people look at as one of the ultimate leaders, right? Like how did you evolve in the way you lead and what maybe some suggestions for our youth players in the way they're navigating that leadership role?
Yeah, I think when you're young, you're always kind of taught to lead by example. I think so. That's like through your work ethic and being a good teammate. And then I think as you evolve as an athlete and you're just coming to you encounter some great leaders. I mean, all the way up through my career, junior, college, AHL, NHL, there was always just great leaders that you'd meet and that were on your team, and not necessarily the captain. A lot of times, yes, but I think you're always looking for better ways to help your team, and as you get older, obviously help the younger guys. You want to pass on what the older guys meant to you. I think Doug Waite was a huge kind of inspiration for me. My first year at the Islanders, John Tavares and I lived in his guest house, so we got a large dose of the Waite family, and they were an unbelievable family. And Dougie, at the pinnacle of that, was he was a great friend, great leader, great teammate. His wife Allison was always so kind to us and my wife, and I think seeing how he led was an eye opener at the time, where it didn't necessarily have to be this hard ass. Sorry, I don't know if you're allowed to say that.
You can say you're
hard guy. Hard guy on his teammates. It wasn't him always demanding stuff of his teammates. He was there to joke around. He was there to lighten up the mood when we needed to. When we needed a good kick in the butt, he definitely gave it to Johnny and I. And I think you just respect what I got from it was how much you respect someone who's obviously knowledgeable but honest with you, not trying to sugarcoat anything. He's always honest with us and always trying to help us. I think he could be hard on us one minute and then comforting us maybe mentally after a bad game another time with a beer or two in his living room. So I think it's just being able to adapt as a leader and understand. I think by the end of my career, understand what each individual player needed and how important every single person is to the team and making them feel important. I think that's a big thing. When you have guys on the team willing to sacrifice and fight, but they might not be on the score sheet, they have to be recognized. They have to know how important they are to the winning of the team. And I think that's maybe something I learned through my entire career, but I came away with that. I think that's the biggest thing of a leader. Just, and some guys need to hear some hard things at times, and that's your job. It's not your job to be necessarily best friends with everyone, but you have to make them feel all important and all part of the team.
Man, I want to ask you too, when you think about letters in youth hockey, and this is a conversation that I know especially Mike and I have a lot of times. There are kids who want the letter, sometimes kids who will say need the letter. And, the quote that I always tell them is that if you need the letter to be a leader, you're probably not ready for it yet, right? The honor of receiving a C or an A has nothing to do with needing it. It's by the type of leadership that you display. So can you take yourself back? And I know you deal with kids in youth hockey all the time. Maybe let's go to that 10 through 15 age, right? Where everybody's growing, everybody's running. And that, sometimes I think there's the misconception that the best player on the team has to have the C, right? What would your message be to young kids about receiving a letter or wanting a letter or the responsibilities of a letter at that kind of critical age?
I think is the most useless thing ever. I don't think. I mean, we don't do any letters on our team right now. I think. I mean, eventually. I don't know what the age is, but I just don't think they have. I think you see. I know who the leaders are on our youth hockey team. I could see it every time. I don't think they need a letter to do that. I think. Especially at a young age, maybe they don't understand enough, so their parents are telling them something if they don't get a letter. So I think that's something that probably doesn't need to happen early. I think if the best player is not the captain, is he going to leave your team? I don't know, because his parents are upset that he's not the captain, which, I mean, you don't. I just think they need to learn to lead correctly before there's actual letters. And I think, you see the ones that are leaders and how they lead in different ways. And I don't think there's any leader out there that needs a letter in any age group in the NHL, AHL, to be a good leader. So you can always be a great leader without the letter. If your team does give out letters, that doesn't necessarily mean you're not a leader. It is a great honor when you are a letter, and that's kind of why I say it's useless, because I don't know if they truly understand how important it is if they are wearing those letters to make sure everyone is involved and everyone is feeling part of the team. I think that's mostly the coaches at that age. So maybe by 16 or so, I think you see guys start separate themselves as actual born leaders and great for the team leaders. So maybe by then it's a little more important.
I'm just
funny,
curious,
right?
Matt. You say you don't do letters on your team. What age are you talking about, and how did you explain that to the parents and the kids?
We're what are we, second year Pee Wee? How do I explain that to them? I tell them we're not doing.
Yeah.
I tell them we're not doing letters.
Yeah, coach says.
Explain about it.
Yeah.
So,
Did you get any pushback from parents or anything?
Not yet.
Okay.
I'm sure I'll get some soon, Christie. But
After
not
they
yet,
watch
I
this
think,
episode.
Well, I think the key too is we circle back on this a lot. Like that, one of your roles as a leader, as a coach, is to develop all these leaders, right, and develop the skills that can take. And I think, Matt, maybe you could say it, right. I mean, you get to the AHL and the NHL, every guy in your team was probably a captain of their team, right? So I mean, imagine how much you have to separate yourself from the fact that everyone was the best player in their organization and their team, and now they're all together, and then it's like fighting to be the leader, which is actually a good thing, right? I think once you at 10 or 11 and 12, I don't know if anybody's equipped with saying, hey, you're going to lead this team, and we're at a disadvantage, right, as coaches, because we don't even know if they're equipped to do that, and we don't know if we're limiting somebody else from being able to get and elevate themselves to that, right? By saying, here's who you are. We're going to kind of define you at 11 years old and 12 years old. It's kind of hard. So I like the fact that you're not, certainly giving a letter out and saying, okay, we're going to make you our captain. But I think knowing, watching you up close and seeing your kids, you're developing, all those players with leadership qualities. And I think that's probably more important than any letter that you can give.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I think it's, I hope that we could make all the players responsible for trying to lead the team, and they all feel responsible to be a leader, both, on the ice and off the ice. And I think that is a good point. Maybe that's in my head as well. I don't want to, give out a couple letters and then all of a sudden, the guys that aren't letters are like, well, these guys are supposed to be our leaders. They should do this. They should do that. I just don't think they're equipped yet. So we'll see when they are.
Right.
You know,
and the
I'll
ones
say
and the
this.
ones that are equipped, it's not
Yeah.
going to hurt them. I mean, the ones that are equipped with it, you're not stifling their ability to
Sure.
be leaders. I'm sure
Right.
they're still yelling and screaming and getting up and talking and doing the things they do.
Right.
Yeah,
You know
I
what?
mean, I've seen it before. If you need a letter to be a leader, then you're usually a fake leader. So it doesn't
Right.
it doesn't really doesn't matter.
Well,
Matt, I
I'll
want to
say
hear
this.
about. Go
I
ahead.
hope, real quick, Christy, I hope I have to say this because I hope the kids and coaches and parents are listening to this conversation, not to stay on letters, but I have seen, and I'm going to say it right now, this is a huge no-no, coaches, if you're even considering this. I have seen coaches, Mike, I know you have too, bargain the leadership, bargain the letters to get people to come to their teams. Like, hey, if you join my team, I'll give you a letter. And I
Wow.
can't tell you how detrimental that is on
Oh.
so many levels. Because number one, you've taken something sacred and you've made it transactional. And if the kid's young enough, now he's going to see the letters as transactional of, oh, this is how I apply value to my worth on a team. That's the worst thing you can do. The second part of that too is coaches. If you're doing this, what the hell are you doing? Right? Because you've just fractured your team, whether you realize it or not, right? Because that kid's going to come in with a chip on his shoulder now that he's got a letter or she's got a letter. Don't do that. Do not bargain ship with the letters, okay? The second half of this, just real quick, is what I have found is that most parents just want you to be honest with them of, look, if you want to come here, this is the type of program that I run. This is the educational side of things. This is what I plan to provide your kid to become a better hockey player. And I'm going to say it as a coach. If that's not good enough for you and your kid, no problem. I really mean that. No problem. You find whatever is going to work for you, okay? But you got to be true to yourself. And I'm not saying that, like, there's no recruiting if you want a good player, but there's a right way and a wrong way to do that. And if you're going to bargain ship with letters, I mean, what are you, a day trader? Like, that's not how this works. So I just wanted to throw that out there because, Matt, you're making some really great points here about, let's just say, how significant letters are in youth hockey. Not that it's not an honor if you get one. And I'm not saying that you know, it shouldn't happen or it should happen, but let's put some brain power into thinking about this, right? You don't need it to be a leader. All right. So sorry, I'll get off the soapbox here. Christy, you had a question. I apologize.
No, I'm kind of shocked to hear that. I didn't know that was going on.
Oh, I've seen it.
That,
I've seen it.
Wow. Well, here's the
Yeah.
hockey mom coming out of me. Shame on any coach who does that. Shame on you.
It's so
Do not
lame.
do that. There we go.
And then
Matt, I wanna hear about
Christy
your-
too. I've seen teams with 4 or 5 A's, and it's just
I've
like, what are you
never-
doing? Half the team has a
Wow.
letter.
That's crazy. That's nuts. Matt, I want to hear about your kids' book. Tell us all about it. What inspired you to write it? And what's the lesson? I'm sure there's a message in there.
So it's actually written by Greg Presso, who's a father on our team. We've actually become really, really good friends. It kind of started. I mean, he's on the train at 4 a.m. every morning to the city to work at his bank. So he would fire questions at me for probably 3 years straight. At 4 a.m, I'd wake up to probably 20 questions.
That's a
and
friend.
they're all
right
about
there.
like what I did. It first started with him kind of investigating. He's big into youth hockey, loves to help kids, and anything he can do to help them develop to be great athletes and humans. And he would kind of ask me questions, all sorts of questions from my childhood to NHL. And eventually he was like, you know what, we should write a book. So he kind of took that on, and we kind of went through my entire, I guess, hockey career from childhood. And I think he did a great job, but
Wow.
I think it was, yeah, it was more of an example to show, this day and age, show adversity and overcoming adversity, not just giving up and, as Lee said, switching teams every year or whatever. It was, it was faced with some real hard truths, and coming out the other side with grit and determination. And I think he did a great job with the book. So that was, it's just encompasses kind of everything I went through, and hopefully the kids like it.
And now I get the
really
title. That makes sense. Matt Mo's Grit Pile. That's cool. Now I'm like, what is that all about?
Yes.
Now I get it. That's so cool.
Yeah, it's all about. Yeah, he came up with this grit pile kind of thing where every day you're adding to your grit pile, whether it's schoolwork, nutrition, what have you. Just staying diligent on things you love. I think it's a lot about finding your passion too. If you're passionate about something, then this is the type of work ethic you have to put into it.
That's awesome.
So we're gonna get Greg on here sometime. Greg played for me growing up and in high school, and I think he didn't play in the NHL, but I think to Matt's point, I mean he's asking questions all the time. I mean he's a guy at the time, a kid, right, that kind of had his own grit, right, had to have his own adversity, had to fight through, and he was a goalie, Matt. So that I don't know if that is a knock against him, but we'll just say you probably he has to have a little bit more added to his grit pile. Just because of the adversity he faced in the net. But I think, you're absolutely right. I mean, I think we talk a lot on our show about, the different regions that we're in. And I think, this region, the Northeast, I don't know, can you define a little bit more about, what, the definition of what you guys feel grit is? Because it could be different things for different regions, right? Like in some places, grit is, I mean, we remember talking to like Tommy Laidlaw, and grit for him was, getting up in the morning and working on the farm and trying to find ways to, train, even though he had to work every day, or, different guys that had to do different things. Our kids aren't getting up in the Northeast, most of them, and, shoveling and doing the work that way. So can you define a little bit about, what you present to your players as grit and what they're overcoming?
Well, actually, this is a hat Greg made for me. So when you look in the mirror, it says it correctly, but it says "find a way" in the mirror. I think that's definitely a saying that I think we use is like "find a way." I think obviously we're fortunate to live where we are. A lot of the families are doing well, but I think it's finding a way. I think too often we like to come up with excuses why something happened to us, but the reality is, maybe we're just not good enough, and that's fine. I don't think that's something wrong with that. Then we have to find a way to, improve what we want to do to be better. If we want to be a better hockey player, okay, now we have to find a way to improve ourselves as a hockey player. It's not like, oh, this coach doesn't like me, he cut me, he doesn't know what he's talking about. It's like, okay, why'd he cut me? And let's face honest truth here, and let's not complain about it. Let's find a way to figure this out. And I think I think that's a big part about the grit is trying to find a way. You want to be great at something, okay? Let's find a way to be great. And I don't think anyone can become great at something with mediocre work. So finding a way is a big thing for us.
I love it, Matt. I want to keep turning this to youth hockey here. Funny enough, you and I are the same age. Actually, we're only separated by a few days, which I thought was really funny.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, well, the reason I'm bringing that up is because I know we grew up at the same time in kind of the same era. And I always tell the parents today for their kids that when you and I were growing up, there were not a lot of training aids available yet. They were kind of just starting to arrive. But the truth is this: we had to go on the street. We had to go play. As you just said, you had to find a way to practice. And what blows my mind today is when I hear of, I don't have this thing, I don't have that thing. Buddy, it's like you don't need any of these things. And I'm not against training aids in any way. I think it's the coolest time to be a young hockey player now because there's really nothing holding you back from playing. But it's the mindset that I find sometimes that might be lacking a little bit. And that brings me to the next question. I did lead you a little bit here, but the biggest adversities, we talked about this earlier, that kids are facing in youth hockey. What are the biggest challenges? And again, I just bring up our youth because we had challenges. The era before us had challenges. And you just said it. You have to find a way to practice. And I always subscribed to the thought process that, and my dad told me this when I was a kid, as hard as you're working, someone's working harder. And man, did that motivate me to get outside and shoot pucks. I remember going to the hardware store and getting a piece of sheet metal to shoot off of. There were no shooting pads back then. You had to figure it out. So keeping in mind your upbringing and today, what are the biggest adversities? What are the things we can do differently? Tell the parents, drop the knowledge, tell the coaches, let them know.
Well, I think we're in my biggest thing I see is there is absolutely no lack of resources. We have almost too much resources. Back when we were playing, I think especially Mississauga, they're all city-owned rinks. They'd take the ice out in the summer, and we play box lacrosse, so we didn't even skate for 6 to 8 weeks. So we definitely have the resources, especially in Connecticut. But one thing I think these kids, obviously in kind of the screen time era, they watch all the highlights, but none of these guys watch the full game and watch players play off the puck, watch what they're doing defensively off the puck. It's all highlights, and usually guys have the puck in the highlights. So they're watching these guys do all these moves, and they never truly develop, that hockey mind for the game because they're only watching highlights and not watching, they see Draisaitl score a goal and this unbelievable play by McDavid, but they're not watching the 10 seconds before as Draisaitl's getting into this great spot off the puck and timing it perfectly. So I think that's a huge thing. And I think when I go back to the adversity thing, there's parents around here do have a lot of money, so when something or someone tells them something about their child, you're usually wrong if you say it because they've never been told no before or haven't been cut before because they can afford to be on these teams. And then their kids hear them talk like that. They hear them kind of making excuses rather than, I know a pivotal time in my life. My best friend, Ryan Delmonte, his dad coached me for, I think 6 or 7 years. And one year, I remember we lived on the same street. We're still best friends. We've been friends since we were 4. His dad called me and my dad over to the house, and I got cut. He wanted to do it in person because we were so close. I slept over at their house 3 times a week. And I remember coming out of that, and I thought my dad was going to say like, "Oh, he's not right," but he's like, "You know what? He's right. You gotta be better. We gotta," and that's kind of when we started looking into working out and extra skating lessons and things like that. So I think being brutally honest about things and not taking a slight bump in the road as complete failure, and the hockey IQ thing, watching more complete games of the best players in the world playing in the NHL, watching an entire game and focusing on certain players, because that's what we had to do growing up. There was the league would play. There'd be Saturday night
no highlights.
Hockey in Canada. That's all. I'd watch both games until I fell asleep. Usually the East Coast and the West Coast game, and Hockey Night in Canada, and I'd follow around my favorite player, Wendell Clark, and see what he did off the puck. Obviously, Dougie Gilmour got there, so I'd watch him too. But that's what you had to do.
Yeah, I just want to ask you a question, Matt, because you're in a unique situation. And I think a lot of guys that have played pro hockey and have elevated themselves to be able to coach youth hockey with their kids and then have the influence of, what you can do with other people's kids, right? So, you're the benefit that you want to give your child, you obviously can give another 15, 20 kids, in your ecosystem. Just, can you talk a little bit about the need for, and maybe this is not even true, but having the opportunity to work with kids for multiple years and stringing together this ability to learn, for them to learn you and you to learn them, as opposed to the 6 months, I'm not happy, I'm out of here, I'm done kind of mentality that we seem to be going, the route we're going into now, how different that is. You just talked about you played for the same coach for 6 years, and he was able to say definitively, I know we can't put you on this team because of this, and this. And I don't think our kids get that. I don't think our families get that opportunity, because most of them don't even know why they got cut. They just got cut because another kid was better, but they don't know why, or why didn't the coach that picked me in the first place in less than 5 months feel that I wasn't good enough anymore. So can you just talk a little bit about the benefits of having players for longer periods of time that benefits both the coach and the player and the family?
Yeah, so I've been very fortunate to coach with my wife's youngest brother, Brett Backman. We've coached every year together. So obviously we've become very close. I think working with kids over multiple years, as a coach, you're looking to build on things. And if you have too many new players every year, you're starting over with the concepts. And I think the biggest thing is the culture. I think, developing a great culture for these kids to come to the rink, a great culture for the parents off the rink is, in my opinion, more important than teaching them any skill. So I think it's just that culture that you're able to develop. Kids understand it, and the kids that don't want to be part of that culture, obviously you can get rid of them. So I think that's the biggest benefit, is developing a consistent, good culture year after year.
I think one of the things in youth hockey we don't focus on enough, Matt, that you're tapping on is just environment, right? I think it's real easy to forget that part of this journey in the youth aspect, the hockey obviously is a big part of it, but just being on a team with other people and learning how to deal with that, learning how to get through problems together, winning and losing, all of it. I do think sometimes there's a misconception. I see this of, well, we're supposed to win. Teams are supposed to win. That's not, you want to win. I mean, don't get me wrong. I want every team my kids are on to win, but the reality is only one team's going to win the whole thing at the end of the year. And there's like 6 billion teams. So the odds are not in your favor. And I would say that the wins in youth hockey are vast. You can't limit it to a tournament win or a regional or a national win. It's, did your kid develop? Did your kid develop some social skills, right? What adversity are they facing? Again, good coaches do this, and you just said it. Invest some time into that, because here's the funny thing about it. That actually ends up breeding wins on the ice as well, right? But we don't spend enough time on environment and culture, right? Let me ask you in this way. What percentage of time do you think coaches should be spending on that or thinking about that?
More than the skill session, I think.
Yeah.
I just think, I touched a bit on it before, like leadership and making everyone feel important. I think that's, Greg used to keep stats for us. I think we had our stats were like forecheck, back check, block shots. And they were worth the same as a goal and assist. And then, we'd usually give out a belt after the game for someone who kind of was like the gritty player of the game. And I think, that's important for other kids, the kids that are scoring, goals regularly, to see that they're not winning these games just because they're scoring goals. They're winning these games because there's other kids on the team that, maybe aren't the best goal scorers, and they're fine with that. And they're sacrificing in different ways, which is the only way any team wins. And I think the only time I really get mad, I get mad at mistakes every now and then, but I think that's just, me expecting a high expectation. But that doesn't really bother me. I think it's more of when the culture is not right, like our kids are not defending each other or something like that. These are important things that I think they need for down the road if they want to play hockey going forward, which I think we do a good job, my brother-in-law Brett and I, of telling them this isn't just for now. This is for your entire life in hockey and off the ice, and working in a team. And you don't necessarily have to be best friends, but you have to be close, and it's a brotherhood, and there's going to be debates and fights just like in a normal family, but this is how you have to be successful. So that culture, we're always trying to influence that.
Yeah, I like what you do, especially recognizing the hardest working player. One of our coaches, who I absolutely adored, had a construction helmet, and it was whoever worked the hardest, the hard hat, right? got that. It wasn't whoever
The
scored
hard
the
hat,
most
yeah.
goals, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't whoever scored the most goals, but was the grittiest player, the
Yeah.
one who hustled the most, the one who, set the other players up for goals. Yeah, so I love that concept. It's fantastic. I'm just curious, do your kids play hockey? And how do you approach hockey in your family?
Yeah. So my son, who I coach, he
Oh, you
plays,
do
and then my
coach.
daughter,
Okay.
she's field hockey and yeah, she's field hockey and volleyball. I don't know why she never really got into hockey, but
Not in ice hockey.
she was kind of doing she was doing dance when she was younger, and I don't know. She loves field hockey and volleyball now, so and studious. So
Okay. And you
she's
didn't
good with
try
that.
to influence her to play ice hockey.
No, I don't. We
Okay.
never. Yeah, she never really played any sticks or anything. And then my son, when he was born, he was just around. He just had a stick in his hand since he could walk. So we're like, all right. He actually hated skating to start, but
Really?
that he obviously
Did
loves
that
hockey.
kill
So
you when he said, "Dad, I hate skating"?
oh, absolutely. Oh, Chrissy, absolutely. I think it's he used to not want to go on the ice, and we had some heated conversations at the time because I knew he wanted to, but yeah, we had some heated conversations. So we still do. Now I coach him now, and we'll get into it every now and then. But we laugh about it ever after. I think I had a talk with him before I started coaching him, and I said, "Listen, I'm gonna be hard on you, but once we're in the car after a game, after I've coached, I'll give him one thing that I saw, or that kind of ticked me off, and then we kind of drop it. So our relationship we don't really talk about it after that. Our relationship just goes back to normal. He puts on his songs in the car, and we're ready to go. So
Yeah.
we've done a good job separating kind of coach and dad.
And that's not easy. And a lot of our audience, or a lot of dads out there listening now, who coach their kids, because you step up, you volunteer to coach the team, and chances are it's because you got a kid on the team. It's a delicate balance, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, I'm 4 years into coaching him, and I'm still figuring it out. So it's definitely not perfected yet. He'll tell you that. He reminds me every now and then, but yeah. Still, we're still always trying to make our relationship the best it can be as a coach and a father. So we're always working at that.
I've done it for 17 years and I still haven't gotten it right. So.
Yeah, I don't think I'm ever gonna perfect it.
And then that now, and you talk about your brother-in-law and Backman. His dad definitely hasn't gotten it right, but he's a tough guy too. So I think it's tough. It's tough to coach your kids. There's no doubt about it. And I think this show, Lee will say it too, right? That you try to learn. I mean, one of the great things about being on a show like this is you learn from so many different people, and then there is a little voice in the back of your head that keeps you. I think for me, like keeps bringing me back to the middle and bringing me back to the don't talk to the kids in the car. Bring me back to don't worry if they don't want to go to practice today. It's not the end of the world. Like it's just like oh, this weekend tournament didn't really mean that much. Nobody's quitting hockey for the rest of their life. So I think it's just a matter. It really is. But on the other side of that, Christie, is having a guy like Matt and Backman and these other guys, and Presso, having the opportunity for other parents to have these guys be on the bench is I don't think people can appreciate how beneficial it is to all the other kids and how hard it is for the person that has their own kid on the team. I think everybody thinks, oh, he's putting his kid on the team because he's going to get the most ice time.
Exactly.
And it's the hardest thing to do. It's so much easier to sit up in the stands and just watch and bitch about the coach. I mean, it's an easier position.
Right.
And it's hard. It's very difficult, but I think the kids and the parents should really be appreciative of the opportunity.
Right.
I'll say this too, Mike, to your point. Christy and Mike, I don't know if you realize this. We've done almost 400 episodes of this show. And what's interesting is that, and Matt, you know, I'm the youngest parent, right? My kids are now 11 and 8, but when we started the show, they were like 5 or 6. The oldest was. And, I have been such this great beneficiary of 400 episodes of knowledge from these two, but also from all the guests that we've had. And to Mike's point, even with that knowledge, and I'm going to say it again, I have benefited greatly from being on this show. there's still so much that comes up that you just don't,
Yeah.
you don't know what to expect. You don't know what to deal with.
Yeah.
And that's actually going to segue in at least my final question, Matt, is that you're in an interesting position. You went through youth hockey, you went through collegiate hockey, you played in the NHL. Now you're a dad. So what was the most surprising, or it might be multiple things, surprising things in your return to the rink as a father, right? What were you not expecting? Or what was that thing that you realized, like, oh man, I put my parents through this too, right? Like what was that biggest realization for you?
All right. Before I answer, I got to add to Mike. Jonathan Quick's our goalie coach too, so we got him too.
Yeah.
Can't forget him.
Right. I mean, you got an all-star team. You got an all-star team.
Jeez. Wow.
Wow.
He's
I'm sending kids over.
No
to
name
your way.
dropping, by the way, Matt. Jeez. That's not
We have 3 Stanley Cups between us.
Oh my God.
He's got them all. No, I think as a coach, I think as a parent, I said, I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to push my kid hard, help him push himself hard and just let him have fun. And I think I get more fired up as a coach / parent sometimes than I ever did as a player. So I think it's trying to relax sometimes. Like, all right, this is one tournament at 11 years old. It means nothing to their overall development. So sometimes I got to get a little less heated. And I think Quickie probably will say the same. We had him on the bench for a tournament last year. I almost got kicked out of the game for getting so heated up. But
imagine being that ref.
I think it's just calming yourself down, like not getting, like it's such a long journey. And I, even myself, who tells myself that all the time, that it's a long journey for my son. There's so much time. I mean, he hasn't even been close to puberty yet. So clearly a lot of time. Even I get caught up in the moment and have to kind of step back every now and then. I think a lot of times all of us do that. We probably get caught up in the moment, like this is so important, whatever, and it most likely means nothing. It will make no difference. I mean, there are some important things that happen, but usually there's, it's never the end of the world, especially when they're this young. So, I mean, even when they're older, I think, things. I played AA when I was 16 years old, and I'm sure a lot of people didn't think I'd ever play at Cornell or in the NHL. So,
right.
It's just trying to look at the big picture and not be so crazy about some things that happened in the moment.
Yeah, and in the context, keeping it in context of youth sports and sports in general, I'm not talking broadly life so much right now. Even if it is a big moment, it's just a moment, right? And I it's like there really are very, very few, if any, moments where everything hinges on that moment. Because the truth is this, and don't get me wrong, there are crossroad moments, but you said it too, Matt, earlier. If you're resourceful enough, you'll actually keep creating those moments for yourself, right? It's just highly unlikely there's going to be one that your whole life is going to change if you get this one wrong. Right. And again, if you are in that position, it's still just a moment, right? You got to find a way to navigate your life. I also wrote down here too. Oh, go ahead, Matt. My bad.
I was just gonna say, it reminded me of like Kobe Bryant used to always say the games were just a learning tool for him. That's all they were. He would learn from them. And I think when you say that, it's like, all right, we lost this game and everyone's all upset, but all it is a learning tool for you,
right?
Going forward, experiencing that, whether it was a mistake or a great game, just learning from that, instead of putting so much emphasis on this big moment. It's just another learning moment. That's it.
I just wrote this down. It's a great segue. That if you really love something, this isn't just hockey, but we'll use hockey. If you really love the game and you want to learn about the game, this is the truth. Your body will quit before your mind in terms of the long term. Like your body's the thing that ends up when you're 40, 45, not being able to do what you want to do. The learning actually never stops, right? That was one of the things that astounded me as I was getting older is, wow, I'm still learning. I'm not even playing as much as I used to, and I'm still learning. As a coach today, I'm still learning. The learning part of it never stops. That kind of is eternal, right? So I think that especially for youth players and parents, the more you can get a grip on that side of things, that the learning is actually insanely important, right? Because at some point your body physically won't be able to do this to the level you want it to do it, but your brain won't stop, right? So I think that's a fascinating thing to realize, right? You need to build your body up. Don't get me wrong, and you got to build that, but the mind part of it is somewhat eternal, unless you lose interest, right? Which happens too, right? I think it's a fascinating thought. All right,
Definitely.
So listen, I got to ask you this. We always do this rapid fire at the end of our episode, and I'm going to tell our whole audience this. That Christie and Mike, for some reason, I did not put that in our rundown today. So you guys cannot see them, but I'm looking at them.
Okay.
So I want to apologize because this is Christie's favorite part of the show.
It's my favorite part of the show.
I let you down, Christie, and I did not get them to you. But Matt, I'm going to, Christie, with your permission, I'll just ask them because I'm looking at
Oh, wait, I've got one, though.
Oh, perfect. Christie
one?
Casciano Burns with a rapid fire question. Here we go.
Don't deny me.
I would never
deny of my favorite moment of the show. All right, rapid fire. So it's what, 30 seconds or less?
For the answer, yeah. Let's
Okay.
Yes.
Are you ready for this rapid fire round, Matt? There we go.
Ready to go.
Looking back at your NHL career, what was your favorite moment? The moment that stands out the most? Go.
Scoring my first goal versus the San Jose Sharks.
Good answer.
That was kind of like a moment. I've been waiting my whole life for that moment, and it was my first game, first goal. I couldn't have smiled any bigger.
Yeah, I could see that.
I thought he was going to say coaching with Jonathan Quick.
I want one.
Yeah.
Go
ahead.
Go, Vanelli.
So, Maddie, when you signed your first NHL contract, who was the first person you called?
My dad.
Aww.
Yeah. I signed it. Chris, you'll appreciate this. I had no team because I got drafted by Pittsburgh, but they didn't want me. So my agent called me as I was driving to Cornell to go skate with those guys because I had no team to play for yet. And it was LA, and I signed with LA and played in the rookie camp, I think, like a week the next week. So that was an amazing moment.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell the audience before we get to the last one. Christie and Mike are seasoned at this because those are 2 questions on the list, which is pretty cool. All right. Yes, I knew you wouldn't let us down with that. You guys are pros. All right, this next one, the last one, this is a funny one for you, okay? And let me context. Favorite arena you ever played in? Because I doubt it's Nassau Coliseum. All right, so I'm saying that because it says you can't use a home mic.
Okay. Nassau was definitely the loudest. That playoff game, Game 3, was the loudest by far, other than Lina. My favorite.
Yes.
I love. I always loved going to Toronto, but my parents are actually from Montreal, and all my relatives were there, and that place is just unbelievable to play in. So I'm going to say Montreal.
Okay.
It's always a good answer.
Yeah.
That was always a good answer.
You can't beat Lina Arena, though.
I can't beat Lina Arena.
Oh, it's a good old barn.
Matt, this has been a great episode. For those of you listening, Matt's going to join us on the ride of the rink for your kids this week. That's coming up this Tuesday. But, Matt, you did it. You made it through the main episode of Our Kids Play Hockey today. Thank you so much for joining us.
That was fun.
Matt, real quick, where can we get Grit Pile and how can we find the book?
That's a good question. I think it's gritpilekids.com with the Z.
Call Greg Presso.
Yeah. Is it on Amazon? We'll have to look it up.
I think it's on Amazon.
Cool. Let me go into my my advertising. If you do a quick search online on the Google, you too can find the book Matt Mo's Grit Pile for your readership.
I definitely want to order that. That sounds fabulous. Yeah.
It's a memorable enough name that I memorized.
I just love the title.
And it has great illustrations as well by
nice.
Annika. So
excellent.
It's good little read.
We're fans of children's books here. But listen, that's going to do it for this edition of Our Kids Play Hockey. Remember, you can email us, team@ourkidsplayhockey.com at any point. If you have a question, a comment, a thought, you agree, you disagree, wherever you're at on the hockey journey, send us a message. And remember, too, you can text us directly. Make sure you leave your name and who you are so we know how to contact you. At the description of this episode, there's going to be a little link. Tap on that, and you got direct access to the team here. But that's going to do it for this episode. For Christie Cash, Anna Burns, Mike Benelli, and Matt Moulson, I'm Lee Elias. We'll see you on the next episode of Our Kids Play Hockey. Skate on, everybody. We hope you enjoyed this edition of Our Kids Play Hockey. Make sure to like and subscribe right now if you found value wherever you're listening, whether it's a podcast network, a social media network, or our website, ourkidsplayhockey.com. Also, make sure to check out our children's book, When Hockey Stops, at whenhockeystops.com. It's a book that helps children deal with adversity in the game and in life. We're very proud of it. But thanks so much for listening to this edition of Our Kids Play Hockey, and we'll see you on the next episode.